For the past few weeks, I've been preparing this world for something much bigger. From creating a custom river connecting a lake to this outer lake, and even a quarry to supply materials. Everything has been leading up to this moment, because today I'm finally starting work on the first district of the capital city, the harbor. Before we get into this one, I'd like to mention that a new world download is available to supporters on either YouTube, Twitch, or Patreon, and the link to the download can be found in my Discord after connecting your accounts. But let's get into today's project, where this is the region of my world I've been eyeing to turn into a harbor. To kick off today's project, it's going to be really important that we pick the right starting point for the harbor, so we first need to figure out this section of terrain, where I do plan to be building up this area of the world a lot more in the future, and this is going to be one of the regions supplying this city with food, so we're going to have a pathway that leads into the city from this direction as well, which means not only do we need to create a wall somewhere here, but we also need another gatehouse. So flying back home to my starter base to begin some veggie gathering, which as usual starts with looking through my ever-growing shulker mess. But it is very worth it, as I do manage to put together a fair few resources from it. And next up, I'd like to grab a couple of shulker boxes and fly back down towards the city to utilize the brand new storage rooms I recently built to store all of my stone blocks, where I've completed the first of one of these 3 storage rooms, and I am already really enjoying this. And so let's move on to the second one, where I definitely have the most varying blocks. Which a little trip down into the third and final storage, and we've got a bunch of stone resources. And I've got to admit, that was a lot smoother than my old storage, which is looking up for the efficiency of this world. But I am missing a couple of resources nonetheless, where I'm just hoping that past Stam has been smart and there is a bunch of brick in here. Perfect, as I need a few more brick stairs. I also need a restock on basalt, as I've been using a ton of this recently and once again ran out. And this is way more than I need today, but like I said, I've been using so much of this lately, as it's been really prominent in my terraforming, so I'm not going to complain over the fact that we have a bunch more. Which, of course, to keep staying organized with this whole stone storage, we should probably get these excess resources dropped off here, so that I don't add them to my shulker box mess. A few more resources to get in different parts of the world. First off, at the copper factory, where I definitely need to do a restock on copper soon, clearing out another trial chamber, but for now I'm still able to get all the different copper bits I need, and some of them restocked. I'm also going down to the lake, as I'm out of black dye and I need some to craft glass and concrete powder. A second dye I'm out of is brown, which I also need to get a bit more of, so flew over the starter house to the jungle to get that sorted. Where our boxes are definitely starting to come together here, got a few up here as well, and now it's just wood left to get, which hopefully we can sort with just a bit of crafting. But unfortunately not all wood, as I need restock on spruce, as I used all of it creating the storage room. I also need more jungle wood over by the jungle, crimson wood over in the nether, and finally at the mangrove swamp, where I need a little bit more mangrove, but we'll need even more later on, so gathering up a bit extra. Where we're still over 600 days away from being able to build a mangrove tree farm. But back home, this should be all of the boxes we need now. Oh, and some extra boxes, because I have a slight feeling I'm going to be doing some digging. We're heading down into the area. This is my plan, with a path leading over to the gatehouse, with the city walls extending out on either side. So let's throw ourselves right into this and start clearing out space along the ridge of the quarry to have enough room to build in a path, which will probably be one of the most used paths in this world by the imaginary people living in it, as it runs straight into what hopefully will become a very busy city harbor in due time. Which, before we get started on the actual harbor, we need to figure out the gate to enter the city, as I've already started a city wall across the lake with a gatehouse built up, and that's something I want carrying around the entire city with a similar architecture, so a lot of the blocks we've gathered so far is going into recreating the gatehouse, but on this side of the lake. I'm also a massive fan of their round tower design, so much in fact that I do think I have to create a few variations of it, or I'll be building the same design all around the city. Which might end up looking a little bland, but I really like it here. And don't question the fact that we have the same design there and there. Okay, maybe I should make another one for the corner over there. But filling my inventory with blocks once again, I want to continue building, starting to create a second tower. Which, just like the first gatehouse, I want a boxier design, but I don't want it to be the exact same. So first this base, where over here I've got this indent in the tower, and then this little outcropping here towards the bottom, which I am a big fan of, and I think it looks great. But not only would it be a little lazy to just recreate the exact same thing, it's also going to look a little stale. So instead, I'd like to extend some wooden platforms out here, or well, a wooden platform that we can just border off with a little bit of oak. Utilizing some temporary blocks, we can get some sideways logs, which I'm just loving that texture right now, and continue to build the walls up around that with our spruce. Then for a little bit of shape, as this is extremely flat at the moment, I just want to add in a little wall here at the top, and then we can add in our staple red roof, where I have really been debating over the new blocks that are being added to the game, with the cinnabar mainly, as that would just make this texture so much better. But I also have a rule in my worlds where I don't really go back and change old builds, but also getting rid of the brick and the texturing, it almost feels worth it. And I probably wouldn't do that if this cinnabar would be added in 2 years and I've completed up all of the city walls, and that's a very much past project, but I still have an entire wall to create between these two mountains in the future. So maybe I will go back and change them out for cinnabar, because admittedly that texture is fire. Don't worry about this little hole, that's where the wall is going to connect up to. And I think I'm going to work on the inside later on once we actually start figuring this area out. And I'm going to focus on the front, or well, top, as I'd like to create something different here as well, where I'm thinking some battlements, creating a flat top tower. Which, as I look at it, it is looking perhaps a little too flat. So let's extend up some pillars from mud brick that transitions into a circular cone-shaped roof with a trim of granite supporting what is quickly becoming the classic red textured roofs of the city walls. Which I actually really like that, but I do think it is missing something there in the middle, as I was just planning on extending down a staircase from this, but it does feel a little empty. Which I think to fix that, all we need to do is bring in our spruce palette already in the build and just create some walls, leaving enough space to walk around and utilize the battlements. Something we probably won't notice from too up close, but that just feels so much more supported now that we have that central beam going all the way up and you not seeing the terrain through it. Where even though these two gatehouses are extremely similar, I think they vary enough to both be interesting, but also being similar enough to make the connection that they are part of the same build. Because even though they are probably about 100-200 blocks apart, they are still the same build, as the city wall is going to encase the entire city. But with our gatehouse done, we need to start sort of working on the area in here. So fighting this tree, it's definitely going to be worth getting a beacon set up in the area. As I have a bunch of digging later, for now I've just got to remove a few trees, which of course is sped up by the beacon. Then also clearing away a few layers of mostly grass and dirt to form the landscape going up from the gatehouse a little better to suit our city wall. Which, before we get that built in, build the corner tower that will be connecting this wall with the southernmost wall of the city. Where I'm looking back at that circular tower I've already used 3 times along the walls as I create up the base. But taking my worry from earlier with it all starting to look very similar, I'm taking some inspiration from the square tower we just built with some battlements atop the tower before a middle spruce section into a roof, which is just a smaller version of the other round towers. Something I really like the look of. At some point I want to go on an adventure and get myself a bunch of bells to place in the top of these towers to act as a warning system for the city. But enough staring at pretty things when we can make it even prettier by getting that wall built up. From this little tough foundation, I'm bringing in a palette I've become a massive fan of, with basalt as our darkest blocks, moving through cobble deep slate, grey concrete powder, regular deep slate, all the way to acacia logs. Along with this texturing, I'm adding in splashes of discoloration, utilizing some deep slate ore, but also some overgrown bits with some mossy cobblestone and some glow lichen spreading out of that, where just to help transition this packed mud slash rooted dirt I've got, utilizing that ore that I mentioned where the copper ore is very expensive, but I did actually recently find a lot of this, so I've got over a stack. This is probably one of my favorite palettes that I've built recently. Oh, and inside of the wall, well, let's not talk about that yet. As before I start working on that, I think it's important for us to have a proper plan going into this part of the city, where this is the stage most of my past cities has failed at, making sure I have the correct foundations to grow on. So I've hopped into Fresco with a screenshot where I've done a bit of planning and terraforming in creative, but sketching this out is going to allow me to really just throw ideas at it with very little time invested to figure out a layout that I like for this part of the harbor. And returning to Minecraft, we've got a lot of work to bring this plan to life. Starting off with clearing all the trees currently spread across the terrain that I want to transform. With all the trees gone, I am pretty much filled up on all the 6 shulker boxes that I brought along with me. So let's grab a few more boxes. We're actually starting to clear away blocks in this harbor. I'm realizing that there isn't even too many blocks to clear as I thought. We're going to have our work cut out when I get around to making the bottom of the ocean in front of the harbor. But for now, I'd just like to fix everything up till the harbor edge. Making some good progress here. It's looking a little weird without the inside wall, but I've still got to bring this entire section down as I want to create 2 layers in here. So let's start defining that point. Splitting up the 2 layers by clearing away a few more blocks and bringing in a temporary clip face, as eventually this terrain will be bustling, city streets, but I can only tackle so much at once. But at least we've got the terrain down to the main harbor level, just need to clear this corner out a bit more. Which, already fixing the terrain a bit, I'm starting to see the plan come to life. Well, a little bit at least. We've got to get the harbor wall and path in really to see the vision, but I don't have the blocks for that just yet, so for now I just want to patch up the inner side of the city wall, where I've not gotten through and textured this yet, as I've really got no idea how the houses on this upper plateau will lay, and I'd rather not do a bunch of extra work just to redo it a few episodes down the line. Had a quick rumble through the shulker boxes left over, and this is everything that I had that I need. Well, I also need all of this, and also this, but they're not completed stacks, so I still need to get more of all of those blocks. And since a lot of those blocks are stone, and we are above the stone quarry, this is the perfect place to start. Flying between all the storage rooms, where already, even though this is only the 2nd time I'm utilizing the storage room, I'm absolutely loving it. Just getting by here with the amount of deep slate. I am pretty much 16 over what I need. However, I am not that lucky on tough, as I am pretty much out. So let's fly home and straight into my mine, where I'm not sure, but maybe I should move my mining area to the new quarry. But I also really like the micro system I've got here, and it'd be a bit sad to stop using it. Perhaps in the future when I've mined up all the tough in the area though. Speaking of area, let's relocate over to the desert, as I pretty much completely ran out of sand, so I'd like to spend the time filling up a shulker box to have that at the base ready whenever I need. I'm also running quite low on mud, so while I'm down south, I'm also here in the mango swamp and gathering up another full shulker box, but this time of mud. And since I gathered extra mangrove earlier, I can just fly straight back home, where before any more resource gathering happens, this is my rocket box at the moment, which isn't ideal. And I'd rather not run out of rockets, because that means I'd have to walk over to my gunpowder farm, the one built in this world that isn't connected by paths. And oh, yep, I got a bunch packed up in here. Then over here, oh, right, I haven't brought in the interior. I've got an interior for this one planned by one of my supporters, which I really got to build up, but I'd rather not do the material gathering right now. Let's just grab all of the sugar cane I'm gonna need, and we should probably have a crafting table in here as well. But quick restocking mission there. How's my food supply? That's like a good. We can fly around in this world for so much longer. Where the next resource on my list I had missed, so I'm back down at the warm biome to gather up a bit more bubble coral, as I've got a plan to use this for the city path. And since I'm arriving back at spawn from this direction, I'm flying down into the mushroom cave and harvesting the brown mushroom farm as I ran out of brown mushroom blocks building the path earlier. Back around the starter base, let's focus on wrapping up wood blocks where I need to gather a couple more dark oak logs. I'd also like to do some proper terraforming, so I need to stock up on even more pale oak, along with acacia logs not only for said terraforming but also for the city walls. And to wrap up the non-crafting bits, I've cut to strip down a couple of these logs along with a few for my storage. Which fills up a couple of wood boxes really nicely along with some detailing stuff. And we've got pretty much everything now except 4 things. First one being a bit of a design flaw here with the stone storage, as I have no brick in my main storage and I want pots and pots. So I think what I'm going to do is I like having the brick here. I'm just going to craft up a bunch of these and I'm going to leave them in the storage, and I'm just going to get them when I'm doing stone storage, and I'll just grab 16 of each for now, as that should be more than I need. And also, ooh, I don't have that many emeralds. Should be fine. We can probably get a few more from my cartographer. Illegal cartographer, I might add. I'm only allowed a new villager type every 500 days in this world, and well, since we haven't hit day 1500 and I have 3 villager types in the world, and yeah, I'm breaking the rules. It's fine. It's fine. I came up with the rules after I'd gotten these 3 types, so I just gotta wait way longer until I can get a 4th one. Unfortunately, I don't think 37 emeralds is enough either though, so let's just make a quick pit stop by my sugarcane farm, which is just working in the background, and we can run through the monastery and just trade up this paper into emeralds. Oh yeah, I don't have a second axe enchanted, do I? I mean, I have mending and unbreaking. I think I have a few excess emeralds, so we can get another efficiency book and silk touch. And returning home, let's just quickly get this combined. Yeah, that was probably not the most efficient way to do that, but at least we have 2 axes now. But that wasn't what I was using my emeralds for, as I want to have a quick flight out here to the fishing village, where I've got a bunch of fishermen in this little food cave here that has the campfire trade, and I need a bunch of campfires and I don't really want to use logs on them, so we're just gonna do some trading, which has the added bonus of repairing up my light drop because that was nearly broken. But Stam, that was only 3 blocks, and yes, you are very right. For the 4th and final one, we've actually got to head into the nether, where first of all I want to set up another little nether portal here on the roof to hopefully end up, yes, in the mangrove swamp. And perfect, that's what we need. Yeah, it might not be too obvious, but we need a little frog, as well, I've decided to use a frog light, and I don't have a frog light farm yet, so we're gonna have to do this the old-fashioned manual way. And what by, oh, we are in a basalt delta already. Okay, that's perfect, where I guess we just create a little spawning platform. Should just be able to like fly up. No magmas. Yo, maybe I didn't go high enough. Definitely past the spawn space now. I don't get why I'm not getting any spawns. Ugh. Okay, fine. I'll take him under the roof. Come on. Down you go. Stay on the bridge, buddy. And okay. Do you have to be off the lead? Okay, we got 2 frog lights. No, stop that. Stop, no. And 3 frog lights. That's all I need. I feel like, oh, yep. Come on, come back here. I got a sneaking suspicions you're not gonna last in here if I don't put you in a box or something. And I would like to probably get more frog lights in the past easily, maybe. Got all our resources moved down to the harbor, and let's just have a quick little refresher on our plan for this, where the first thing that I want to get started on is the harbor wall itself, as I think that's going to instantly just structure up this entire build. With these darker blocks, I want to extend up the first few layers of the retaining wall supporting the main harbor area. Where the reason this is a lot darker, we'll get into here in just a second, but for this side that's going to be sticking out here, I want to start brightening this wall up. Meaning we're going to be going into our deep state, and we're actually going to be utilizing the palette we've established with the city walls here for the port as well. As like I said earlier, I really like this. Going into some cobblestone and even some gravel, as we don't really get into this light part of the texturing in the actual wall itself. Also left left out a few blocks down here where I'm thinking we can just bring in a little bit of mossy cobblestone as some vines started to grow up from the water. But before we continue that, I want to bring in some mud bricks just on the top here, where this is going to become the railing. And I actually want to use trap doors as opposed to walls or something, as that means I can utilize the blocks I'm placing right here to detail the upper harbor area, and there won't really be like a gap unless I want there to be a gap. The only downside with not using, well, full blocks is that we do see the ledge here, which, well, I might just cover that with decoration later on, and it's probably not going to be too noticeable. With this established, let's continue down the remaining length of the harbor, adding in 2 staircases to get down close to the water's edge, along with a railing along the top. And this is also where this dark line is going to start making a little more sense, because currently it could be interpreted as a different stone type, but it actually isn't. It's the same stone type. I just want to have this lower wooden pier closer to the water surface, and that's going to be blocking a light coming from that lower section, which we're going to be showing with the darker blocks. Where I've extended this all the way over to this segment, which I didn't extend up the wall on, and that's because we're going to get back into this later on with that building I want to construct here, but I'm not really sure on how I want to do that yet, so I am just going to leave that a little bare. Something I'd like to leave a little less bare is these mossy segments which we have added in, where I want to come in with, first of all, just a little bit of glow lichen, and also just a little bit of our vines coming through here, as if you didn't know, I've actually disabled vine spreading in this world, meaning I can utilize it pretty nicely to decorate areas like this. Where, taking a step back from this, I'm already quite a fan. I definitely think I want to do something towards adding a little bit of shape to this wall down the line. Maybe some storages carved into the stone, because I've seen a lot of that in inspo pictures that I've been looking at, but that's probably something I'll add in the future, if so, along with some boats, which I am both super excited about, but I'm also extremely terrified to build some actual big boats and not just small boat. Is small boats nice boat, big boat scary boat. So to get my mind off the big scary boats, let's create the harbor path. I'm going to call it a path. The area where all the goods being transported in and out of the harbor gets moved around to either be put on a ship, into a warehouse, or sent out of the city on carts. And I want to use that a little more, getting this path started on leading up and away from the harbor, but I don't want this to be the main material of the main path, road, street running through the entire capital city, or even some of the smaller streets, where instead I want to start introducing a stone-like path palette here, utilizing that bubble coral and brain coral that we gathered up earlier, along with some other stone types. Continuing this upwards here, we can curve it up and through the gatehouse, connecting it up to the main pathway outside the city, where it's obviously looking a little weird floating here at the moment. So I just want to bring in a little tough retaining wall, which we can top with a little bit of polished tuff, which is looking a whole lot better. Where I also did just run through and add in a little bit of leaf litter along the path. Maybe get another one in right here, sort of as mud stains from carts and horses that travel out here on the pathway and then into the city, where they're bringing some of this in here along the path, which I just really love this level of detail that you're able to bring in with the leaf litter, even though you get a ton of it whenever you do anything in a forest. No, totally didn't throw away 2 shulker boxes of leaf litter, because I have so much of it and I'm never going to use all that much. Not that I'm ever going to really use the amount of stone that I also have. Where looking at this from a more aerial view, I'm really liking how my sketch is starting to come to life inside of Minecraft. But I want to shift my focus away a little bit from the harbor and finish up this southern wall of the city, where I didn't really portray this all too well in my sketch. So I just want to refine that a little bit, where I have the wall coming down towards the water and a massive lighthouse as the final tower to the city wall. So with this idea drawn up, I want to get started on the side that we didn't draw, where I very much want this lighthouse to sit on top of an outcropping in the terrain so that it makes a bit more sense. Therefore, I'm clearing away sort of a very shallow fjord into the terrain on the south side of the future wall. And even though I've got no plans to tackle the harbor or ocean floor today, since there is no water here, I might as well just dig away the few layers needed so that I can bring the terrain all the way down. And with that cleared out, I'd like to introduce another new segment that I want to start including in videos, where I try to convey some of my building knowledge to all of you, where today I'd like to take you through the process of how I texture terrain with Axiom, where I've got it all shaped out with purple concrete in my creator world. First step to figuring this area out is going to be hopping in to Axiom, and we're going to set up a tool mask, where we are going to want to do a and feature together with a block and angle. The block, we're going to have purple concrete, as that's what I've got as a temporary block in this area. And we're going to set the angle to 60. And then we're going to get our paintbrush and we're going to go in with, first of all, mud, where we're going to use a Y level as well, making sure that that is equal to or below the sea level. We're going to get that painted in here, and we're just going to fix up some of these areas where we're going to want more mud, where we're going to want some more rock. And the reason we've done the angle here is just to help us with this cleanup process, where if we remove the angle, we're just going to paint the entire wall, and that's going to make the cleanup process so much more difficult. Then we are going to repeat this process, swapping out the mud for our temporary grass block to get the grass sections in. After this, I'm going to replace the surface purple concrete with light gray concrete, where just replacing the surface is going to be very important for the next steps. Then we can go and we can just grab all of the light gray concrete, and we're going to use the auto shade feature. I'm going to use my preset here, which is a bunch of different concretes, and I actually want to add in a new one so we can see how that process is. I think I'm just going to add gray wool, as I don't use that in my texturing. Then we're going to set the sun to be custom positions. That should be pretty good, and I'd also like one from probably up about here. This is really just play around with it and try. So we're gonna lower the white, as I know there's always going to be a lot of it, and then we're just going to take out a shade. I'm gonna have a little look. Okay, still a lot of white, so we're going to remove even more. And I think I'm at something which I like, where just like the previous steps, I like to come in and just touch this up by hand. Okay, I've got something I am happy with now, and this is when we're going to go back to our masking tool. We're first going to start with our black concretes. I'm going to use the noise painter tool, where I've already got some presets set up for these, and then I'm just using a meta ball, and if you want to just copy the settings that I'm using, they will be right here. Then we just got to go through and we got to paint this in. Then going through the remaining temporary blocks, swapping them out for our mix of blocks to create our artificial shadows and highlights, replacing all the uncovered logs with wood and making sure there are no floating gravity blocks. And while I get this terraforming built up in the survival world, let's go through the rest of the palette, where I replace the grey wool with pale oak and acacia logs, grey concrete with tough and pale moss, light grey concrete with stone, andesite and gravel, and for the lightest palette, our white concrete got replaced by light grey concrete powder and wool. Which, oh, I love that. Oh, I gotta fill in the water. I forgot. Where, while I do this, I just want to take the time to mention if there are any suggestions to the incorporation of some creative elements in the videos, do leave a comment about that down below, as I know for a fact that I am not the best at teaching. So if you're left with any questions or have any suggestions for future installments of it, do let me know, or just what you'd like to see me show you how I build. There we go. Much better. I do really like that there's a different biome color out here, so that the water is brighter and then it gets darker in here. Oh, how I wish I could just paint the water color. It's probably one of the features that creative builders have that I'm like, I wish I could do this in survival. That, and of course a bunch of features of the debug stick. But as much as the terrain is looking great, the transition into the city is not. So let's fix that by extending down this city wall, where here on the outside I'm taking my time, making sure to texture everything, adding in our different discolorations and overgrowth before topping it off with the battlements to complete it up. Or well, almost, as the inside is just like the top section, untextured, to save me both time now and in the future. Additionally, from the end of this, I want to bring in the base of the lighthouse, where I'm continuing with the different brick variations we have that I've used as a foundation for the city walls. I also threw in some windows, and I've got to say I'm very excited how this build is going to turn out. It's been literal years since I built a lighthouse, and I've got a fun idea once we get up to the top. And well, I've also never built one at this scale, but the entire wall here is looking so good. Maybe a little better on the foliage, and I'm not gonna fix that up. However, I am going to build some foliage because I've got this beautiful box of resources, as we of course got to build a tree, or multiple maple trees actually, where I had a thought back at old tree designs I used to use, and I wanted to spruce them up a bit, just like maybe you want to spruce up your subscription feed a bit by subscribing. And just these trees feels a bit flat and boring, so I want to bring in some underbrush between the quarry and path. Something else that feels a bit flat and boring is the comment section without your comments, even if said comment just says no comments. Okay, I'm done with the puns. Really been loving the dark oak leaves as bushes, and they work great here as I don't feel like I'm going to fall into the quarry anymore. But maybe you could fall onto that. Okay. Sorry. But you could still hit that like button. It does really help me out. I haven't actually had a look at this, but arriving from over here, I mean, we do have to fix up the background as it kind of just blends right into that, but I really like that. And even having a look back at how these trees used to look when I designed them 2-3 years ago, it is actually insane how much I've improved at building trees. With our trees out of the way, though, I think it's time to turn our focus to the lighthouse. And before we get the lighthouse going up I need to fix this up, which we can start off by extending down a lowered section of the harbor to create the base of the Lightkeeper's house, utilizing the same block palette as the rest. Where I did start a small little foundation here for that house, which I just want to continue up with our deep state bricks. Then we're going to be moving into some tuff as we get up on here, and this is going to create the foundation for a little warehouse that's going to go underneath the Lightkeeper's home, where that is going to be the entrance, and then we're just going to get this off going in and come around here at the back. From this polished stuff here, let's get a little bit of mud brick extended up, going into some full blocks and a little slab for a entrance. Now let's see here for the walls. At the risk of making it a little too samey to the path, I'm gonna grab some packed mud and brown mushroom blocks. Let's get some coarse dirt and regular dirt as well, where at least we got this tough barrier here to kind of differentiate between the two. Just gonna make some space for some windows, get a little bit of dripstone in on the corners, incorporating some of that dirt, make this look like a really grimy building. And I guess this is the point I'm most worried about, is we don't have that tough foundation, so we're gonna use the dripstone right there, and then we can bring in some path mud there, and well, it's the same color. We do have some extra blocks up here, so I do think that that works, especially with the tough barrier, where this course start here is kind of a saving grace. I know that that's there, but I think I'm gonna have a staircase up here anyways into the Lightkeeper's house, so I think that's gonna be fine. I've also got the rest of this first floor extended in here, using a lot of dripstone and dirt here on the inside, along with some spruce in the floor, as if they've kind of dragged in muck. And ooh, those windows. Give me some oak trap doors. Even more brown blocks. Who could have guessed? Before adding on a roof, I'd actually really like to flesh out the interior. I know, right? Me wanting to make an interior, I just really want to give this small area of the port that vibe that I eventually want the entire region of the city to have. With just so much going on in this small space here, throwing in all of these little storage racks. We got hanging roots, ones I've had on the floor of the top roof. What? Once I've had it on the roof. I also added in the soul lanterns, and I hung a chopper chain underneath them as one of those lights that exist in basements that you pull on to turn on. Definitely requires some bit of imagination, but I kind of like it. Now let's work on the Lightkeeper's house and entrance into the lighthouse, where I want to maybe a bit unorthodox, but start with the roof, outlining it with some polished granite. Then to fill out the rest, using mainly cut copper, but they throw in a little bit of exposed underneath the overhangs on either sides. Grabbing some mangrove and pale oak, I'm filling in the what sort of is attic walls of the house, which I really like, but we have these gaps now. And I think I'm going to continue with the palette we started, where we're bringing in some support here with our stripped mangrove. And then we're just going to expand on this palette a little bit, introducing some light gray terracotta, which I want to go into brown mushroom stems, but we only have one mushroom stem in the game. This can just come down, and then we can use a little stripped pale oak log right there for the wall. And to connect these two up a little bit. Just some signs in here. I've really got to come through and wax all of these signs, but I do really like that. And then, of course, for the entrance, we're going to bring in that staircase I was talking about earlier, which hopefully blends that coarse dirt in a little better. Continuing on, getting... falling. Getting a little door in. We can hang a little lantern up in the corner, and instead of our signs up here a little higher, we can just bring in some buttons across this to get another one of those signs that is even smaller than that one. And for this little window here, I brought along a copper grate, which we're just going to stick in there with a trapdoor underneath it, and a little allium to just break up the color scheme a little bit. Final touches here, just some supports to this, and of course also a little railing for us. Threw in a little chest, and I got that wall in on the other side, and yeah, there's an interior to do in here too. I'm gonna leave that one to the supporters. What I won't leave for them is the chimney, however. Getting a deep set one built up with some spruce details to make it stick out a bit from the wall. And since I already detailed the warehouse part itself, I also want to throw in a bunch more details around this lower platform, which is looking really good, and I can't wait for the rest of Harvard to look like this. Oh, I'm so happy with how this little area has turned out already. A little boat docked in front of this eventually, and oh, it's gonna be amazing. And well, with this small section here patched up, let's shift our focus to the massive lighthouse, where since this lighthouse is technically a part of the system of walls, towers, and gates surrounding the city, I'm already pretty sure on what I want to do palette-wise for it, where I want to extend the main body and length up using the lighter blocks in our city wall palette. Then I did leave a few gaps and created some texturing that might look a bit weird, but adding in some stairs for a little roof, and you start to see why there is a shadow being cast below. I've got 3 more of these added in at varying heights to give it the feel that they are matching the height of a staircase on the inside of the tower. And already, I'm really liking the size of this. I mean, these towers look to be similar size just because this one is so much further down in the world. But with continuing up from this one, I think it's going to look even grander. Grabbing a few more blocks, let's start working on that, where I'm continuing some polished granite I added in while extending up the tower before filling in a spruce walkway and finally throwing in a railing. Where this isn't even the layer that is going to have the lighthouse part of the build. No, I found this inspo picture that had a sort of double tiered system, which I really liked. So I'm utilizing some dark oak here instead of spruce, as I'm afraid spruce would blend in a little bit too much to the walkway. We're up here for the second level. Then I'm gonna go fairly simple, and we're gonna make sure to have this a little bit inwards from that bottom one, just to give it that effect that it's slimming down as it goes up. Throwing in another railing up here where it looks a little bit weird with the brown stained glass, but if we fly on down, that is gonna make it just look so much more connected, especially down here where we already have some brown behind it. It feels a lot more like a full railing. But let's wrap up the top of this lighthouse now, where I want to tie it into the rest of the city wall, bringing our sandstone, birch, oak palette in with some giant gaps. Before we figure out those gaps and the light structure, I want to finish the structure itself with another red colored spiky roof, where I have really been racking my head at what to do with this, and I've kind of come to the conclusion that it's time for magic, because this is a fantasy Minecraft world after all, so it's only fair that I use a little bit of magic, right? Maybe I need to start including more magic into the world. Help. I don't know how to do magic. Please give us suggestions. But I figured we could get a little light crystal thing up here in the lighthouse, which too helps all the idea of that this is a crystal that gives off light. I spent a bit of time adding in glass panes and candles streaming out of it, where I've got to say I like this lighthouse a lot. Super happy I decided to build this. And I do wonder, with the additional bits, it's still looking a little small, maybe compared to that tower from this angle. How about this side, which is really probably the most important side? Oh, okay, yeah, that definitely dwarfs all the other towers. Yep, that is amazing. Oh, I love that. Sometimes you just gotta blow your own horn and have a look at something and say you did a good job. because I think I did a good job here. Only I could get rid of that iron beacon beam. Just been looking through all of my boxes now, and I've got a lot of blocks for this final section of the harbor. But I do need to restock on a few things aside from items in my regular storage. First, a bit of dripstone, and secondly, a bit of crimson wood, where I'm starting to wish I had automated this instead of warped. But not to worry, I did use at least a little bit of warped in the build. Just used way more crimson. It's fine. And before we get to building, I'd like to take a bit of time and create a refined sketch, as all the sketching I've done today has been digitally, and I'd like to at least try and do one sketch with pen and paper here, focusing on a bit of perspective, but also not relying solely on a ruler. Getting back in the world, I want to start instantly bringing this to life, where the first step will be to extend the final bit of the harbor around the corner. Where, just like the sketch, I've created these entrances that I want to turn into a storage room, first bringing in a floor, before bringing the walls up and filling in a spruce trapdoor roof, as we are a little tight on space to the pathway above. Which has a nice amount of space in here. As I was thinking, we're going to bring in some shelves here eventually to store things, but I think I'm going to do that in the future once I'm actually detailing out this part of the harbor. Moving on up from this bottom part though, I want to start working on one of the walls here, where the first thing I'd like to do is get a supporting structure extended up here using some logs before swapping around for the main bits, where I've actually forgotten terracotta, as I want to use a mainly brick texture where we can get a little bit of dripstone for some darker bits, and we're going to mix some granite into that brick and also bring in some terracotta. Close those windows just a little bit as we're moving up here in the build, topping this off with that dark oak trim. Let's also just get this side here extended out an extra block on both of the sides, where instead of our brick texture on this corner, we're going to be using some chiseled tough bricks. Then we're going to go into a little bit of polished, more chiseled tough, and topping that off with a polished tough, where I then want to start utilizing the spruce slabs. When I was sketching this, I figured it'd be really cool to bring in a sort of crane into the area, which is what I'm going to try my best to extend in here. And survive the piglins. The piglins, whatever those are. Really got to get those moved out of the harbor, but let's bring in some windows with some oak trap doors, where in one of these, to avoid some biome decoloring, I'm going to just use a dark oak sapling in a pot, and for the other one we can use a salvia bush and then a gate like that underneath. Flying across the water, I am definitely liking the start of our first house in the city. I'm gonna party count this one. It's sort of the lighthouse, sort of a first house, but it's only got a single wall at the moment, so let's continue building up the remaining 3 walls, continuing on with the slight diagonal I've got going on in this corner, which might prove a challenge for the roof, but for now is okay. On the side facing the road, I left this gap and didn't add any windows, which is where I'd like to extend up a chimney using some oak and stripped spruce logs along with concrete powder to fill the gap. Where for the roof, I'd like to bring a little bit more color into this, where I'm going to get a trim of some mangrove stairs coming up on the side, which we're just going to be capping off like that, filling in the remaining roof with a deep slate / tough pellet, struggling a fair bit with some of the stairs, but managing to wrap it up somewhat at least. Where I recently saw on a build made by a friend of mine, Rofo, where he used some signs along the bottom here just to connect and bring that red tone that we have going on the edges here onto the rest, and I really like that. Something I'm definitely going to be utilizing more. Throwing in a few planter boxes on the little edge between what I want to be the harbor master's house and the edge of the harbor. And with our house in on this edge, I think I have to tackle the waterway next to it to finally connect both the river and lake I've been working on into the ocean, which involves a bunch more digging. But compared to both clearing out the lake and river, this was a breeze. Needed a pickaxe and a half, getting myself down to water level, where I'm just leaving some stone blocks in to block out future bridge supports, before starting to clear down and shape out the mouth of the river itself, going up to the edge of the harbor, as I still need to figure out the harbor across the future bridge before I can fully start tackling that section of the ocean floor. With the blocks cleared out just like usual, I want to come in with a bunch of mud since I had that left over from gathering it earlier, and fill in the riverbed, as the darker color gives the feel of it being deeper than it is. Mud in is looking good, but of course I want to come back in and fill up the water so that we can actually see this all become connected. Which is just missing me removing the final barrier I kept in place to not have the water disturb me while digging. And finally seeing, I want to say about 300 in-game days worth of work be all connected into the ocean is amazing. Still have to clean up that side, but I'm going to do that whenever I feel like transforming this mountain into a mountain. For now though, I'm so happy to have this being connected. We're obviously going to come back in the future and be detailing this out and figuring out a diagonal bridge here, which has to be a bridge that, what's the term? Drops down. And goes up, because those sailboats are not getting out of here if it's a straight bridge across. And then of course also about clearing out more of the harbor, but that's a future project, as I want the harbor to carry on around this edge and all the way in to this end of the water over here, probably even have the harbor come out a little bit on this side of the terrain, as I kind of want to extend up a bit of the city over on this side, but it's way down the line. But I don't think we're quite done today, as well, I really should be connecting up the final bit of the tower down to the water, shouldn't I? Because currently you can just waltz on into the city. And for this tower on the end here, I'd like to rebuild something in a similar style to this one on the original gatehouse, but on the diagonal as I start figuring out the base of this. Eventually, I want this to connect up to the diagonal bridge I've got plans for, so to mix up the design a bit across the wall and help me when it comes time to tackle said bridge, I'm choosing to build this on the diagonal now. With the base and main walls extended up, let's switch focus a bit and build up the final stretch of wall for today between the gatehouse and the tower we are currently building up, just a small little stretch filling in the gap. Before swapping my blocks out and starting to build up the tower top, first with our spruce palette just like the inspo. Moving on to the roof, I did copy over the side extensions. Not sure how it works on the diagonal, but I think it looks good enough. And well, I think this entire region looks good enough for now to start rounding off. Of course, there is a ton more work to do in this section of the city, as I want to fill the entire space inside the walls with houses and fill the harbor with boats and life, but for now I'm extremely happy with the start. Not to mention that this is only a small portion of the harbor, so that's going to continue off that entire side over there, and I can't wait to see some boats in here, along with trying to figure this entire region out, which I'm a bit terrified for because I have no idea how to build good cities. You know, a house, 2 houses, I think we're off to a great start, but when it actually comes to putting them together in one little area, yeah, I'm a bit clueless. But I'm sure we'll work it out. Before we round off here, I'd once again like to mention that a new world download is available to my supporters over on the Discord. Oh, and I should probably mention that this is probably going to be the last Forever World video in a little bit, because I have an upcoming new series perhaps that's starting maybe very, very soon. I can't really tell you much about it, but it's starting soon, and well, it's going to take up a lot of my time. The Forever World will be returning, don't you worry. I plan to play a lot more in this world. Well, it is a forever world after all, but it will be on a little bit of an hiatus for a little bit. But don't you worry, I'm not going to completely stop working in the world during that time, as I've got a lot of thinking ahead to figure out the new milestone system that I want to carry on beyond day 1000. I'm just, well, 500 in-game days late to that, but it's fine, it's fine. I'm gonna do a lot of big brain thinking, and we're gonna figure it out, and hopefully I'm gonna finish up that mountain and redo the world plan that's in that hall over there. But that is enough spoilering for the future for now. As always, thank you to all of my supporters, and thank you to you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.